the Republican Congresswoman from the state of Illinois, Mary Miller, who joins us live now from the Capitol Rotunda. Congresswoman,
Hi.
Good to see you. If the president goes through with this, federal troops be welcomed in Chicago? Certainly doesn't sound like it from the local leaders. What about the local people?
Well, the media is owned by J.B. Pritzker, and I'm encouraging people to boycott the legacy media. They know that they're being gaslit, and Chicago has become a war zone. It is the murder capital of the United States. They lead every single city in murders. In fact, the murder rate in Chicago is 3 times higher than Los Angeles, 5 times higher than New York City, and unbelievably, 15 times higher than Delhi, India. And J.B. Pritzker and Brandon Johnson have abandoned the law-abiding citizens in Illinois and Chicago. They side with the thugs, the gangbangers, and the illegals. And, you know, Illinois is the only state to have passed the law to release criminals with no boundaries on it, to have
Are you talking about cashless bail, or
criminals over?
The point, the larger point with the statistics, which I think is interesting, is that you're right. You bring up murder rate. We've talked about this as well. It's a back and forth over the statistics. Murders are too high, way too high in Chicago. Then overall violent crime doesn't even rank in the top 10 in Chicago. So people kind of play around with numbers. I think we added up on the screen 29th. I have, by the way, a violent weekend illustrated here on the tablet. We'll pop it up on screen over the Labor Day in Chicago with the shooting incidents at 37 and victims at 58. I think the president may have given even higher numbers, but there were 8 murders. Now, final thing, you see how stats can be used any way you want, Congresswoman, is that you could say, well, the trends are actually going in the right direction, down 30+% in some of these violent crime statistics, including murder by 32% year over year. So how do you respond to people who use those stats and say, all right, well, we're actually already going in the right direction, so what do we need the guard for?
Okay. Well, first of all, J.B. Pritzker has a history of lying, and I don't actually believe their numbers. But even if you do want to believe their numbers, that's like saying
those came from the police department, not from J.B. Pritzker himself. But that's from the Chicago Police Department.
But that's like saying my fever is now 106, down from 107.
Right, it's still too high.
It's the murder capital of the United States, and the people there are suffering. And then Brandon Johnson had the nerve to say that President Trump shouldn't come to Chicago, but people should come and invest there. I mean, no businesses are going to come and invest there. Businesses are fleeing. They're being forced to flee because crime is terrible for business. Families have been devastated by the crime, and the communities, the people are afraid, and they want President Trump to come in. And I can tell you this, I don't think it's a threat. I think it's a promise from President Trump that he's coming in, and I hope he comes in tonight.
Maybe, well, I mean, we'll see. I was listening to what he said earlier, and the way he was phrasing it was interesting to me because he talked, for example, about Louisiana today, mentioning New Orleans, said the governor wants my help, and I would like Governor Pritzker to call and ask for my help as well, almost kind of intimating that he would need that call, he would need that invite. You're saying he does, and he says he doesn't too, but whether he goes through with it on the troop level, I think is an open question. We'll see how it plays out this week. You know, at the end of the day, you make some points here about where that crime is too high, right? No matter what the year-over-year numbers show. The question is how we combat it. It was almost like with immigration. How do you enforce these policies? Everybody wants fewer criminals in the country, especially if they came here illegally. But how do you do it? Do you use the military? There's a lot of pushback on that idea in this country.
Well, first of all, President Trump can come in because they have utterly failed the people there, and it's an emergency that he needs to bring the National Guard in. But they've emboldened the criminals because they haven't been arrested, and when they are, they're released with no bail, with no limits on the bail. There's no other state in the country that has no limits on this no bail policy. But there have been 174 reported crimes since January 1st, and there have only been arrests in 16% of those. And that's why, like I say, the criminals are emboldened because J.B. Pritzker and Brandon Johnson have limited the ability of the law enforcement to take action. And that's why President Trump needs to come in.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.